I've debated for years whether to tell this story. Every time I try, something strange happens and my computer freezes. My phone screen glitches. Sometimes I swear I hear that distorted Sega startup jingle echoing faintly from nowhere. But lately, the dreams have come back. And if I don't write this down, I think I'll lose my mind. It started when I was 17 during my last summer before college. My parents had gone on a 2-week trip, leaving me home alone. I spent most of my nights scrolling through online retro gaming forums, buying random cartridges from old sellers on eBay. Sonic, Mario, Castlevanias, all that nostalgic junk. One night, I got a private message from a user named Miles94. His profile had no picture, no description, just a blank account made that same day. "I saw your post about collecting Sonic games," he wrote. "I've got something you'd appreciate. It's special." I asked what it was. He sent a single image. A Sega Genesis cartridge with no label, just a black sticker scrawled in silver marker. Sonic XE. Yeah, I know how that sounds now. Back then I thought it was just some bootleg ROM hack. I'd read a few creepypastas about that name but figured it was all made-up internet garbage. He wanted only $10. I bought it instantly. The cartridge arrived 2 days later. It came in a small padded envelope with no return address. The inside smelled faintly metallic, like blood on coins. The cartridge was heavier than usual, and when I tilted it under the light, I noticed tiny dried smudges of something dark along the edges. The word Sonic.exe had been etched deeper than marker could do, almost carved. Still, I didn't think much of it. I plugged it into my old Genesis and switched the TV to AV mode. At first, it booted up normally. The Sega logo flashed. But instead of the cheery jingle, a distorted, drawn-out version played. Deeper, slower, echoing, like it was struggling to start. Then, instead of the title screen, I saw Sonic's face, smiling. Except his eyes weren't eyes. They were solid black with 2 small red dots flickering in the middle. It wasn't like the XE stories online. This was smoother, more detailed, more alive. The background wasn't bright blue either. It was a dark forest, mist rolling between the trees. There was no press start prompt. Just Sonic staring directly at me. Then, after a few seconds, white text faded in. "I am God." My hand went cold. The TV buzzed softly, and for a second, I thought I heard a whisper behind me, like static forming words. I tried to power off the console, but the button didn't respond. I unplugged the whole thing. The screen went black. But for a split second before it did, Sonic's eyes flickered red, and I swear he grinned wider. That night I dreamed of Green Hill Zone, except it wasn't green. It was dead. The sky was blood orange, the trees were gray, and Sonic stood at the far end of the hill, motionless. When I tried to move toward him, the ground beneath me began to rot away, pixel by pixel. When I woke up, my room smelled like burning plastic. The Genesis was still plugged in, even though I'd pulled it out. The cartridge was back in the slot. The next day, I tried telling a friend, Josh, about it. He was into old games too, the kind of guy who'd spend hours debugging code just to fix a ROM. When I showed him the cartridge, he laughed. "Dude, someone probably just sold you a modded copy. We can dump the data, see what's inside." He brought over his USB reader, popped the cartridge in, and started extracting the ROM. Halfway through, the progress bar froze. The laptop screen started flashing random frames from the game, distorted Sonic faces, static, then what looked like portraits of dead animals. Then a voice came from the laptop speakers, a low, distorted whisper. "Do you want to see him again?" Josh jerked back. "Dude, what the hell was that?" Before I could respond, the laptop shut off. Smoke rose from the USB port. We stared at each other. He muttered something about a virus and left early. That night, he texted me at 3:17 a.m. "Bro, I saw him in my dream. Sonic. He was standing in my hallway. Don't play that game again." He didn't come to school the next day, or the day after. His parents said he'd been admitted to a psychiatric ward. He'd been found screaming outside his house, naked, covered in scratches, repeating one phrase over and over. "He's not a game anymore." I tried to get rid of the cartridge after that. I wrapped it in a towel and threw it in the trash. But the next morning it was back on my desk. I tried burning it. It didn't melt. The flames bent around it like a shadow protecting it. Finally, I sealed it in a metal tin, locked it in my attic, and tried to forget. For a few weeks, it worked. Then the dreams started again. They got worse. Each night I'd find myself back in that corrupted Green Hill zone. But now, I wasn't alone. I could hear running footsteps, something fast circling just out of sight. Sometimes I'd wake up with muddy footprints on my floor, tiny like Sonic's shoes. And the sound. That sound haunted me. A faint 16-bit ring collection chime echoing from the walls whenever I was alone. One night I woke up at exactly 3 a.m. to that sound again. Ding. 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 It was coming from the hallway. I grabbed a flashlight shaking and stepped out of my room. The light flickered. Every few seconds it caught a glimpse of something blue darting across the shadows. When I reached the living room, my TV was on. Static hissed across the screen, but faintly through it I saw the outline of Sonic, staring directly at me. His smile stretched impossibly wide, splitting his face. His eyes were glowing red and his body twitched like corrupted pixels. Then a voice came through the speakers, high-pitched, glitching, half-human. "Let's play again." The flashlight died. I felt something run past me. Cold wind brushed my leg. When I turned back toward the screen, Sonic was gone. The TV showed only static, and in the reflection I swear I saw my own face, except my eyes were black and bleeding pixels. The next morning I found scratch marks on my walls, tiny repetitive slashes spelling something faintly. Run. I stopped sleeping after that, but staying awake didn't help either. I'd start hearing that damned music faintly, no matter where I went. Once, while walking home from work, a streetlight flickered and for a brief moment, I saw him standing at the far end of the road, a silhouette with glowing red eyes. Cars passed between us. Each time they did, he'd be closer. Then he was gone. Desperate, I tried reaching out to Miles 94 again, the seller who'd sent the cartridge. His account didn't exist anymore, but one night I got a new message from an unfamiliar email address. No subject, just one line. He chose you. Attached was an image, a pixelated screenshot of Sonic standing over a lifeless Tails. With my name written in red letters at the bottom, I deleted the message, unplugged my router, smashed my computer. None of it helped. That night when I went to sleep, I didn't dream of the forest anymore. I dreamed of my own bedroom, and Sonic was sitting on the edge of my bed. He didn't move. He just stared, breathing. Except it wasn't breathing. It was like the sound of a computer fan running too hard, whirring just behind my ear. When I tried to scream, he put a finger to his lips. Then whispered, "You can't wake up yet." I don't know how long I've been writing this. Every time I look away from the screen, the room looks darker. My reflection in the monitor seems slightly delayed, like it's moving a second after I do. Sometimes I hear the ring chime again. Sometimes the cursor on my screen moves by itself. I tried finding the cartridge again. It's gone from the attic. But last night when I woke up, it was sitting on my nightstand with a new message scratched into the back, Level 2. And when I turned on my TV this morning, the Genesis was already running. The screen showed a new file, Continue, and below it the same red eyes staring back at me. I don't remember turning anything on. I don't remember plugging it in. But I do remember this. When I blinked for half a second, the reflection in the screen wasn't me. It was Sonic, smiling. And his lips moved. He whispered something I can still hear in my head right now. "You'll never stop playing." I never believed in haunted games. I used to laugh at creepypastas. Sonic.exe, Ben Drowned, Polybius. All that stuff felt like digital campfire stories for bored teens. Until I found the game, I don't even know what to call it. It didn't have a title, or a menu, or any of the things a game should have. But it knew me. It's still running somewhere, I think. This all started when I took a part-time job at a used electronics store downtown. It was the kind of place that smelled like dust and burnt plastic. Shelves stacked with yellowed keyboards, tangled controller cords, old CRTs that buzzed when you turned them on. My manager, Paul, was an older guy who barely spoke unless it was about retro hardware. He kept a junk bin in the back room where customers could dump unwanted stuff. Anything from PlayStation discs to old PC towers. One slow Thursday evening, a man walked in carrying a gray desktop tower. He didn't say much. He looked pale, sleep-deprived, eyes bloodshot like he hadn't blinked in days. He placed the tower on the counter, slid it toward me, and whispered, "Take it. Just take it. Before I could ask what was wrong, he left. Didn't want money, didn't even take a receipt. When I asked Paul what to do with it, he shrugged. Test it. If it works, we'll sell it for parts. So I did. Biggest mistake of my life. That night, after closing, I stayed behind to test it. The case was scratched, dented, but the power supply worked. It booted straight into Windows 98. No password, no files on the desktop except one folder. It was named Play Me. Inside there was a single application. Game, X, no icon. No publisher, no metadata, just that name. When I clicked it, the screen flickered and went black. Then a white line appeared. Loading player profile. After a few seconds, words typed themselves across the screen. Welcome back, Daniel. I froze. Because that's my name. I thought maybe it pulled it from the system user info. But when I checked, the computer had no registered name, no account. Then the game started. It looked wrong. Like an old PS1 survival horror game. Blocky textures, low-resolution models, heavy static filter. I was standing in a dimly lit room. Walls made of decaying wood. A single door ahead. No HUD, no controls displayed, no tutorial. I moved forward with the arrow keys and opened the door. The next room looked like a hallway lined with paintings, except every frame showed blurry, distorted photos, human faces stretched unnaturally wide. When I walked closer to one, the static cleared just enough for me to see the photo's subject. It was me, my exact face, same shirt I was wearing, same haircut. And it wasn't a photo I'd ever taken. I exited the game immediately. I tried deleting the file, but it wouldn't go away. Every time I hit delete, it just said, "You can't delete yourself." That line stuck with me. I shut down the PC and went home, telling myself I was tired, that it was just some weird prank software or ARG. But that night, I had a dream. In it, I was walking down that same hallway from the game. The paintings were moving now, faces whispering, calling my name over and over. When I woke up, my apartment felt wrong. Cold, heavy, like the air itself was watching me. I checked my phone. There was a new notification. Game.exe has been installed on my phone. I didn't download anything. I didn't even open my email that day. When I tapped the icon, the screen glitched, flashed white, and the same text appeared, "Welcome back, Daniel." Then, new location unlocked. The game camera panned to show a room, cluttered, messy with a half-empty pizza box on a desk. Glowing monitor, same cracked wall near the door. It was my apartment. Rendered perfectly, down to the mug on my table and the hoodie draped on the chair. I dropped the phone. It landed face down, buzzing. When I picked it up again, there was a new message in the game window. "He's in the hallway." At that exact moment, I heard a soft creak in my apartment's hallway floor. I turned off all the lights, holding my breath, waiting. Nothing. No one there. When I turned back to the phone, the message had changed again. Too slow. The screen went black. The next day at work, I told Paul I was done. I didn't care about the pay. I just didn't want to be near that PC again. He looked confused. "What PC? We don't have any tower from yesterday." I went to the back room. The desk where I'd left it was empty. The label sticker I'd put on it, "Incoming Test," was still there, but the computer was gone. I thought maybe the guy had come back and taken it. But later that day, Paul showed me the CCTV footage from last night. I wanted to prove to him I wasn't crazy. In the video, I could see myself at the desk plugging in the PC, but after a few minutes, the screen went black and I just sat there motionless, for almost 27 minutes. Then, I stood up, unplugged everything, and walked out of frame. I didn't remember doing any of that. At the end of the clip, when the timestamp hit midnight, there was another figure in the corner of the room, tall, pixelated, like an unfinished 3D model bleeding into reality, and then the feed cut to static. After that, things started breaking in my apartment. Lights flickered. Doors opened on their own. One night I came home to find my computer already on. The monitor showed that same game. Only now there was a mirror level, literally a hallway full of mirrors reflecting my character's movement. Except one reflection didn't match. It stayed still. Then slowly it smiled. I shut the PC off, but when I turned around, the reflection on my real mirror behind me in my room was still smiling, That's when I realized something terrifying. The game wasn't being played. It was playing me. Every time I tried to resist opening it, I'd get nosebleeds, headaches, strange auditory hallucinations, that static whisper repeating my name. Sometimes the whispers sounded like my own voice. One night, desperate, I called my friend Lucas, the only person I trusted enough to tell. He came over, saw the game, and immediately said, "You should wipe the drive." "I'll bring my tools." He hooked up his laptop, tried to reformat the system. Halfway through the process, the screen on his laptop froze and filled with a wall of text. "Lucas has joined the game." He stared at me, pale. "Dude, what the hell?" Then his screen went black, and from his laptop speakers came a low, distorted version of his own voice, whispering, "Get out of my house." We didn't even realize the words weren't directed at me. They were directed at himself. The next day, Lucas stopped answering calls. His number disconnected. When I drove to his apartment, his door was wide open, TV flickering. On the screen was the game, and on the floor in front of it was Lucas's phone, cracked, still vibrating. When I picked it up, it lit up to show the same message I'd seen weeks ago. "Welcome back, Daniel. I tried everything after that, destroying my hard drives, moving apartments, changing numbers, but somehow, the game always followed. Sometimes I'd find it pre-installed on public computers. Once, even on a gas station pump screen, just for a second the pixels glitched, forming the words, "Loading player profile." Then gone. It was learning, updating, and it didn't want me to stop playing. Last week I tried something insane. I bought a brand new laptop, never connected it to Wi-Fi, never plugged in any drives. I installed Linux from scratch. When I opened the file explorer, there it was. A single folder, Play Me, and inside a new file, Game 2. When I opened it, it didn't load a level. It loaded my webcam feed. I saw myself on screen looking terrified. Behind me, something moved in a tall, glitching silhouette just barely visible at the edge of the frame. Then text appeared. Final level unlocked. Say goodbye. Before I could react, the laptop screen turned completely black. But the reflection still showed me and something behind me, even though the room was empty. The reflection leaned forward and whispered something I'll never forget. "You made me real. I don't sleep anymore. I can't tell what's real and what's being rendered. Sometimes when I blink, the room stutters, like frames dropping in a lagging game. I've smashed every device I own, but I still hear the low hum of static when I close my eyes. I'm typing this from a public library computer right now. I checked every file before logging in. Nothing strange. But as I type, I can hear the keys echo twice, like someone's typing my words a second after I do. And the monitor's reflection, it's smiling again. If anyone finds this file and runs across a program called GameXE, do not open it. Because once it loads your name, you're already in it. I used to work as a night security guard at an old apartment complex called Ashpine Court. It wasn't glamorous, but the pay was decent and the building had history. That kind of faded, haunted elegance older architecture tends to have. Ashpine had been built in the 1950s, long before I was born. Half of it had been converted into new apartments, but the top floor remained sealed off for renovations. That's what management told me. Anyway, they didn't like anyone going up there. I worked the overnight shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and my job was simple. Patrol the halls, check the CCTV feeds, make sure no one snuck into restricted areas. The weird thing about Ashpine was the hallway layout. Every floor mirrored the one below it. Long corridors with identical doors, faintly flickering lights, and that faint chemical smell of cleaning fluid that never really faded. Except on the 6th floor. That one wasn't supposed to exist anymore. I found it by accident one night. I'd been working there for about 3 weeks. The night was slow, rain pounding against the windows, and the cameras kept glitching, static crawling across the monitors every few minutes. I went to reset the electrical panel in the stairwell, and when I stepped out of the elevator, I noticed something strange. The display said 6. There were only supposed to be 5 floors in Ashpine. I'd been up and down those elevators 100 times. It never stopped on 6. When the door slid open, I just stood there. The hallway ahead was dark, completely unlit. The air felt heavier, colder, like stepping into a freezer. Still, curiosity won over. I stepped inside. Everything was coated in a thin layer of dust. The wallpaper was peeling, yellowed with age. The smell was wrong. Not like mold or decay, but something sweet and rotting. Like old flowers in stagnant water. There were doors lining both sides, numbered 601 through 610. But the numbers weren't printed on modern plaques. They were hand-painted, faded gold against the dark wood. At the end of the hall was a door with no number, just a metal keyhole. I remember my flashlight flickering when I looked at it, like the beam didn't want to touch that door. I turned to leave. But the elevator was gone. No doors, no call button, just wall. I won't lie. I panicked. I ran back down the hall, tried every door handle. All locked, except one. Room 608. It creaked open slightly when I touched it, revealing a dark interior that smelled like burnt dust. Inside, there was old furniture covered with white sheets, a rotary phone on a small table, and wallpaper with faint water stains that looked like faces. I stepped in, whispering to myself, "Hello?" The phone rang. That sound, that shrill metallic ring, nearly made me jump out of my skin. I stared at it, frozen. It shouldn't have been working. There was no power to this floor, no active lines. It rang again and again. Finally, I picked it up. For a second, there was nothing. Just soft static. Then a woman's voice whispering so faintly I had to press the receiver against my ear. "You shouldn't be here." Then she hung up. The dial tone didn't stop. It just screamed. A high, distorted tone that didn't sound like any phone I'd ever heard. I dropped it. The cord swung, knocking against the table. When I turned toward the door to leave, there was someone standing there, a woman, pale skin, black hair covering most of her face, wearing a torn dress that looked soaked from the rain, but her feet weren't touching the floor. I don't remember running, but I must have. The next thing I knew, I was in the stairwell, gasping for air. My flashlight was gone. My radio was dead. When I finally made it back to the lobby, the elevator was showing out of order. I tried telling my supervisor the next morning, but he just gave me this tired look and said, "You must have gotten turned around. That old section's been sealed for decades." I quit a week later. But that wasn't the end. 2 nights after I left the job, I woke up to a sound that made my blood run cold. The phone was ringing. I didn't have a landline. It was coming from inside my closet. When I opened the door, the rotary phone from room 608 was sitting on the floor, its cord trailing off into the dark. It rang one more time. I picked it up with shaking hands. "You came back," the woman's voice said. "Good, we need another one." Then silence. The next morning, I went back to Ashpine Court. I told myself it had to be some sick prank, maybe someone was messing with me. But when I got there, the building was surrounded by police tape. Apparently, a security guard had gone missing the night after I quit. No one could find him. The cameras on the 5th floor showed him entering the elevator at 3:06 a.m., and then nothing. The footage just cut to black. They never found the body. Over the next few months, strange things started happening wherever I went. Mirrors fogged on their own. Doors creaked open in empty rooms. Sometimes, when I closed my eyes, I saw the hallway, that endless corridor with the numbered doors. Once, I caught a glimpse of something impossible. I was walking down the street, glanced into a dark shop window, and there, faintly reflected behind me, was the woman, still dripping, still smiling. About a year later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a key, old brass, with a small tag that read 610. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted to prove I wasn't insane. That night, I drove back to where Ashpine Court had been, except it wasn't there anymore. The entire building had been demolished. The lot was fenced off, nothing but rubble and concrete. But through the chain-link fence, I saw something impossible. At the far end of the lot, a single door standing upright, untouched by debris. Dark wood, no number, and as I watched, it slowly creaked open. I don't remember walking toward it. One moment I was standing by the fence, the next I was standing inside the hallway again. Dust, peeling wallpaper, the faint smell of rot. All 10 doors were there this time, including the last one, room 610. The key fit perfectly. When I turned it, the lock clicked and the door swung open into pitch darkness. I could hear whispering, faint, hundreds of voices murmuring at once. Then a soft, familiar one rose above them all. Welcome back. Something cold wrapped around my wrist. A hand, pulling me forward. I dropped the flashlight. It rolled on the floor, beam flickering, just enough to show the inside of the room. The walls covered in dozens of rotary phones all hanging. Cords leading into the ceiling. They started ringing, and all of them, at once. The sound was unbearable. Echoing, shrieking. I tried to back away, but the door slammed shut behind me. The last thing I saw before the light died was my reflection in one of the brass phone dials. But it wasn't my face. It was hers. I woke up in my apartment the next morning, covered in dust. The key was gone. But when I checked my phone, I had a new voicemail. No number, just static. And faintly beneath it, a woman's voice whispering, "There's always another one." That was 3 years ago. Sometimes I still hear the phones ringing, faintly, in the middle of the night through the walls. And sometimes when I look down my hallway, I see that last door again. Old, wooden, unnumbered, waiting at the very end.